Good day, everyone. How are you? That's fantastic. Today I'm going to talk about plants, particularly why are plants green. This has always been a fascinating subject and something I've always been curious about. First off, plants are green for a very, obvious scientific reason. They absorb mostly red and blue wavelengths of light and reflect the green light, which is not utilized for photosynthesis. This is why we see green, because the reds and blues are utilized by the plant. But I got curious about why some plants are purple. And this started when I was watching a show where there's a theory out there. Okay, now this is a theory, and I did some research on it because I first thought it was a fact, so I had to look it up because it was so fascinating to me. The theory is that in the early stages of the Earth, 2 to 3 billion years ago, the early plants absorbed green light. And green is the most powerful light in the spectrum. It is the one that penetrates the farthest. It is the most, let's say it has the most energy of any of the rest of the colors in the spectrum. And theoretically, it could, let's say, power a plant much more than red or blue light, just because, just because of the power of the green wavelength. So, what they found out is that there's this thing called retinol that's in plums, and this is what gives things their certain plants. Here, okay, I'll try to go back and put this, because I've got a couple notes written here and I'm trying to remember exactly. Okay, anthocyanin is what makes plants purple. When you have plants out in your garden that have purple leaves, let's say, those plants still photosynthesize using green. Or they still have green, they still reflect green, just not as much, because the anthocyanin within them reflects more purple, rather red and blue than green. But at the same time, it's also reflecting green because it is absorbing a lot of the red and the blue too for photosynthesis. So the plants work exactly like a regular plant. The reason why they appear green is because of the extra stuff that goes on besides photosynthesis. Or the reason why they appear purple, rather. Carotenoid is what makes plants, let's say, red, orange, and purple, or red, orange, and yellow, as they start to get older, say when cannabis plants lose their leaves. It's the same thing as keratin, what gives carrots their color. And there are all these different things that happen within a plant that give leaves their colors. My point being that the green aspect of it is because they reflect it and don't utilize it. In the early stages of the Earth, there were these... what are they called? I can't even remember. There was some sort of bacteria. They were like the precursors to cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria are like the most ancient bacteria on Earth that eventually evolved into the existing plants, and cyanobacteria are green. They believe now, this is a theory, that the earlier versions of the Earth were purple. This is not a proven theory, so just so you know. That what had happened is the plants in the early Earth, or the early bacteria, were actually utilizing that green energy because it was so much more powerful. But at that time, there was a lot less oxygen in the atmosphere, and they were using the green light, to process it in a process simpler. They were using a molecule that was simpler than chlorophyll, so it would have been a simpler existing microbe. So they're absorbing the green light and reflecting off the reds and the blues, therefore it would make the oceans appear purple. Now, what this theory believes happened was that there was one particular species of bacteria, or whatever, version of bacteria down further in the ocean, which basically said, okay, well, they're sucking up all the good light, there's nothing left except green. And so it evolved to utilize green light and created chlorophyll, or utilized chlorophyll, for photosynthesis. So what happened was we had this dominating species of purple plants, or purple bacteria rather, which could have produced purple plants in the long run because it would absorb the green light. Somehow, these green ones that were further down absorbing the light ended up being the the fathers and mothers of our current day forests, everything around us. Okay, I know I spent way too long explaining this, but it's just fascinating to me. I guess one thought would have been of what could have happened was, say, the Earth had the purple layer, and then down below it had the green layer way down the ocean, sucking up those green, sucking up the green light, or sucking up the reds and the blues, I should say. Wait, God. See, I'm getting this backwards. I guess the ones down below would be using the reds and the blues, but reflecting the greens. The ones up at the top were using the greens, but the reds and the blues were being reflected. And the point being that something happened with where the... I should redo this video. This is too long. I'm not going to because it's just too much work. That the ones further down basically dominated the Earth in the long run. That we could have had purple forests. But we don't, because of what happened. Some kind of like evolutionary, hiccup, or who knows. There was a question people were asking, a scientist was talking about why don't plants utilize green? Why don't they use green energy since it's the most powerful? And they said that it may not be the best evolutionary trait to get the most power, because you can actually overwhelm if you have too much energy. So maybe they used the purples and the reds, reds and blues, in order to kind of take the calmer part of the spectrum. Maybe as the environment changed, the plants, changed. I don't know. Plants are fascinating, and just thinking about how long they've been here, these bacteria, plants, how they're all born of creatures. If you think about this, the earliest, microbes become our current plants, which are almost creatures. It's fascinating stuff. I don't know. Nature just blows me away. I mean, I could go on and on about the connections and how things appear to be more than just chance, but then you get into the hypotheticals, and but that's what life's all about. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I've rambled enough. Take care, everybody. Plant some gardens.